A warm welcome, everybody, to this webinar from the Xpeer Practice Group on the updated accreditation criteria as implemented from June this year by UEMS and EACCME. My name is Froukje Sosef. I'm the co-founder and medical director of Core2Ed, a company in independent medical education and Siyemi. And with me today are Daniela Clape from Xpeer and Eugene Pozniak from Siyemi Learning. Daniela runs an EACCME accredited app and works with several national accrediting bodies as well. She has 20 years of experience accrediting with EACCME in several medical education companies. Eugene organizes online as well as in-person CME activities. In 2015, Eugene, his organization was the first non-US accreditation provider to be accredited by EACCME, and it is also accredited by EBAC, and he has over 20 years of experience of CME accreditation with EACCME, as well as more than 25 other accreditation bodies. These new criteria identified questions and also challenges by all types of providers and organizations on accredited medical education, such as medical societies, professional congress organizers, as well as for-profit and not-for-profit medical education providers. During this 30 minutes webinar today, we will discuss a few key points identified in these new EACCME 3.0 criteria, such as how do the new criteria affect the work of medical education providers, where are the main challenges, and also are the new criteria conflicting with other regulatory criteria? So Eugene, to start, could you give us a short overview about the key elements of these new criteria and what are your initial thoughts on these new criteria?
Great, thank you, Froukje, and hello, everybody. Yeah, I mean, this EACCME 3.0 was launched just a few months ago. The UEMS developed these standards following a consultation process. They said that there were 157 responses that they had, which they requested following their Seville meeting early in 2022. So been waiting on this, although they didn't actually specify what kind of feedback they got, or what they agreed with or disagreed with, or what the feedback was like from this consultation process, which is a pity. But they launched the standards, and so we can see that EACCME wants to shake things up a little bit, and there are some key changes, especially about how the CME activities can be planned and implemented, who is involved, with some sort of updates and changes about sort of formats and delivery options. So, and I think we're going to go through these points during, or a few of the points that are of relevance to us as providers, members of the Good CME Practice Group, yeah, through this session today.
Thank you, Eugene. And then Daniela, moving on to you. Which of those elements that Eugene touched upon just now have an impact on CME providers? Also mentioning what are the positives, but also what are the challenges?
Yes, there are always challenges, but I will start with a good note because I think it was something that was announced in Seville by the UEMS, and this is the possibility to grant half credits, no? And of course, in a world that is moving quickly, and we all know that the trend is micro-learning, that was, I think, a great thing that they did, allowing this half credit. So for those who didn't know, in the previous EACCME accreditation criteria, one ECMEC, which is the European credit, was awarded for each hour of learning in a program or activity. But with the new accreditation criteria in June with EACCME 3.0, the half credit unit has been finally introduced, meaning that moving forward, half credit, 0.5 points, will be granted for every 30 minutes of educational activity, no? So that's a greater flexibility in terms of duration. It allows HCPs to engage in shorter educational activities and be rewarded for that, obtaining a credit, a half credit for shorter ones. I would say that also for let's say pieces that were during also 1 hour and a half, no, that's also a good news, because now you can grant 1.5 credit, no. So these half credit increments are also allowed with this new criteria. So this acknowledges the learning opportunities can come in various forms and durations, and it encourages, I believe, both learners and providers to explore innovative educational format like this. So that was the great thing. And now also a good thing, I think, although it's more a challenging point, is the use of logos. So we appreciate that in the new criteria there are more specifics now, and how and when you can use or not use a logo, of course, to ensure that education is free of any form of advertising. The EACCME does not allow the display of individual company logos in scientific lecture, in the scientific program, on the website of live educational events. But there are also some cases which are very good for providers like us to really know what are the rules. And maybe the only challenge would be that not all the cases are specified. So what do you do in this case? So it still needs some clarification.
Thank you, Daniela. And actually, I saw a question come in on the Q&A just now about the use of logos. Hopefully that's now addressed in this answer as well. That's great. Eugene, back to you. It is important, of course, to distinguish medical education from PCO to medical communication, especially in relation to the definition of independence. Unfortunately, this is not implemented in the criteria. Could you summarize the differences and share what the impact is if we follow the current criteria?
Yeah, no, this is a bit of a frustration actually with the EACCME 3.0. Is after so many years of conversations of who can actually be legitimately involved in CME, is this there's not that much clarity around the independent side of things. You know, CME activities really, you know, the concept of independence must be sacrosanct there. You know, separation from potential involvement or control by commercial companies, you know, like the pharmaceutical industry. So, you know, the main organizations that can be involved in CME in Europe are obviously the medical societies, the professional congress organizers, the ones that are just delivering congresses, you know, let's say supporting the activities of a European Medical Society, for example. There are also professional congress organizers that have CME departments internally and actually develop their own CME activities. So there are these PCOs that do CMEs, hospitals and physician groups, obviously, you know, for internal meetings like this. But it's this, there's just no definition around the professional education providers. They're just not defined anywhere. And, you know, we've existed for 20 years, a lot of us, but certainly since 2011, like when this group, the Good CME Practice Group, was set up. And there are plenty of these, call them private organizations, that develop high quality, independent CME activities that's just not getting recognized. And what the ultimate frustration is seeing still the terms medcoms agencies. Medcoms agencies, it really needs to be clear, this is a separate industry. Medcoms agencies, they're agents of their clients. Who are their clients? The clients are the pharmaceutical industry. They are nothing else but an arm of their pharmaceutical industry clients. They must be excluded at all costs from anything to do with CME, whether it's supporting it behind the scenes or anything. You know, if we're talking about CME being independent from pharmaceutical control, don't give it to a pharmaceutical company department to run. So they really must be removed, and to have such high prominence for them. I mean, they used to be hidden away on page 22 or whatever of various standards. But, you know, over the years at European CME forum meetings, we have explained to EACCME that they are not appropriate. My business partner in European CME Forum, Peter Llewellyn, for those of you who remember him, he's like a community facilitator of medcoms agencies. He himself recused himself from European CME Forum and left because he felt that there was no role for him in there. So, you know, if EACCME is there developing standards, that should be implementing independence in standards in Siyemi, then there must be absolute clarity and exclude all medcoms agencies of whatever flavor from being involved in Siyemi accredited activities in Europe.
Very clear. Thank you, Eugene. As an additional question to that, though, there are now also requirements to work with a healthcare provider. Can you, in the new criteria, can you elaborate on the implications related to this?
Yeah, this was weird to see this come about. I mean, ACCOE, the oncology accreditor, used to ask for this like 15 years ago. And there are problems with this. I think anyone who's worked in collaboration and providership, in co-providership, or any kind of these kind of arrangements, knows how difficult it is to partner with the European Medical Society. I mean, European medical societies don't like partnering with external organizations. They like doing things internally. Unlike the medical associations in the US, they don't have departments for partnering in this way. So that can't happen. And hospitals in Europe don't have education departments on the whole. There are no CME departments for us to get in touch with to say, hey, can we collaborate on something? Of course, we deal with employees of hospitals, the actual doctors to work as faculty members, but then to get anything signed off higher up the line can take months. In the UK, it takes like 9 to 12 months to sign any kind of partnership with a British hospital. And on top of that, they'll want a percentage of the funding, and they're looking for, not just a few euro here and there. They're talking like 20-25% of the overall funding just to have their name associated with this. So it's really quite confusing. Why is this a requirement? And certainly, if it's down to quality or demonstration of independence, I'm afraid that the professions are probably less clear on those kind of definitions than we are as professional providers. So yeah, it might make sense with PCOs if they don't have internal CME departments, but certainly, I mean, when it comes to medcoms, where it's explicitly talked about there, I mean, absolutely not, for the reasons I've just given a couple of minutes earlier.
Yeah, thank you. And then back to you, Daniela. Since this is your expertise, online learning, what are the challenges and also the changes for online learning?
Yes, so we explored the new website and the application process for this new criteria and for e-learning materials. So far, we verified that the process is quite similar. It seems to us that this new EACCME portal is better organized, and the different application sections are on separate pages. So navigation should be simpler and the process much clearer than before. But there are a few new fields requesting information, additional information that were not there before. And I would highlight a negative thing because they ask really the detailed now information about all the developers of the educational activities, meaning all the speakers, and it can be an issue if you have programs specifically as a provider that involves a lot of let's say speakers and doctors, because now you have to apart from the conflict of interest that previously we had to make them feel, we have to ask them a lot about in person information, so name, address, etc. So it's a new administrative burden for the providers, and of course we seek always to be agile, to be quick, to have these programs really accredited as fast as possible. And you have to take into account that if, like in our case, we have hundreds of speakers, we have now to display this personal information, which also when we saw that raises a question about of course, let's say the GDPR, meaning that what will they do with that information? We should maybe display a new let's say text specifying how we will ensure that the personal data are secured. So yes, this is what I saw regarding the new application format.
Thank you. So that's online. Then if we look at face-to-face or in-person programs, Eugene, what is the impact specifically there?
I think this is probably more of an impact for the larger meetings. So this is certainly in the grounds of the larger medical societies, especially the European Medical Society congresses. There are some bizarre things that have come out here. Satellite symposia are now no longer accreditable. And this is a real pity because, a few years ago, it was possible to do this. So to actually take away the control just from the pharmaceutical industry sponsors, the supporters, the exhibitors at the conference, so to actually allow external parties to develop some kind of accredited content that can be used there. I can understand why some medical societies don't particularly like that, and they might see it as competition from the professional providers. Okay, fair enough, but we're not really that scary as competitors, quite frankly. But it's the other thing, the actual loss of income now. Medical societies are hugely reliant on pharmaceutical industry support in various ways, and in EACCME 3.0. There's these huge restrictions on the use of logos or branding outside of the exhibit hall itself or the satellite symposia rooms. So there's sort of any promotion is hermetically sealed inside the space. And bear in mind, over the years, fewer delegates are going into the exhibit halls anyway because of the restrictions to the pharmaceutical industry codex, where they're now forbidden from giving cuddly toys, USB drives, whatever they may be. The gifts have gone down now, and what they can actually communicate has gone down. So fewer delegates are going into those halls. So the actual exposure, call it to branding at least, is being reduced. So you can't have a logo outside. Just think about going to a European Congress, a European Society Congress. You get off the plane, you see an advertisement from a drug company. Welcome to the European Society of blah, blah Congress. Come visit us at stand wherever. So that's presumably now forbidden. You walk up to the Congress area, you're registering somewhere, thank you to our sponsors. Well, that's not allowed to be recognized. The branding that's on the side of stairs or escalators, that's not allowed. You get onto the Wi-Fi, you can't now have thank you to drug company X for supporting the Wi-Fi. Drinks, refreshments, breakouts, lunches, whatever. There is absolutely no recognition anywhere. Lanyards, bags, I think that even the drug companies have sort of stopped doing that, but I've seen some lanyards with logos on them and things. If all of this is forbidden, how are medical societies meant to actually now raise that additional income that's so important to running their congresses and their annual programs anyway? So this is quite strange. And even though EACCME 3.0 specifies things that are not allowed, but there's always, and we see this throughout, there's on a case-by-case basis or et cetera, et cetera. These are meant to be standards. They are meant to give us black and white guidance, and it really needs to have the clarity there. But what this absolutely indicates, and this has been a challenge with all the EACCME standards over the years, they clearly are not talking to the people that it affects. They haven't spoken to the European medical societies. They certainly haven't spoken to providers. And that's something that we as a group have been saying since 2011. We wrote that open letter just saying, please, EACCME, talk to the people who are affected by the standards in order to make sure that the terminology you use and the changes you want to implement actually are workable and do actually promote the cause of better CME in Europe.
Very clear, Eugene. Thank you. Can you also just touch upon sort of the funding from industry? You mentioned it a little bit, but I think the terminology used has also changed in the new criteria.
Yeah. So, when the criteria first launched, they got rid of any references to grants or anything, and it was sponsorship. They're still hanging on to the term unrestricted, etc. And the last, EACCME 2.0 was launched, I think it was in 2016. Between 2016 and now, a lot has happened in the world. And in the shorthand is 2018. What happened in 2018? I'm going to have to write this down. So, the OECD ran their Integrity Forum actually in 2017. And throughout every European country, we had anti-corruption, anti-bribery legislation that came in. And in fact, if you look at the financial world, we had a few financial scandals of banks, financial institutes or whatever going under, but every country implemented some kind of bribery act, some kind of huge changes to accountancy principles across Europe. Now, we've seen it in our business even in the US, for the stricter or the deeper implementation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the Sunshine Act, the FPR declarations of transfer of value. So any money that is moved anywhere has to be declared. The International Committee of Medical Journal Editors looked at this. The BMJ changed the way that they accepted papers and money and things. And this all happened around sort of 2018. The way that we could ask for funding from drug companies changed. We had to specify, and basically it's transparency and control and purpose of funding. So any organization, medical society asking for sponsorship or a grant, needs to say to the drug company, we would like this amount of money. We are going to spend it in the following ways and have actual line items. And then after the activity, we as providers have to declare to the organization giving us money, this is how we've spent your money. And with this, you have a contract, and the contract is very clear. It says, we're going to give you 100,000 euros to do the following things, this for 20,000, this for 50,000, this for 30,000. And we have to stick to the contract. Yeah, we can't change the ways. There's some wording in EACCME 3.0 where the provider is allowed to change the way the funding is spent. No, you can't do that. We are obliged by the contract to spend the money precisely there. So the word unrestricted, actually, there are a whole host of restrictions that are there. And that word itself has really caused problems with compliance officers and drug companies, with my own accountants, with our tax body here. You know, what's this unrestricted? Well, I could go and spend it how I like? No. What EACCME is trying to say is that there's no control from industry, that it's independent. Perfect, then use that kind of wording, but not, unrestricted. And again, it needs to conversation with the parties who are affected by this to use terminology that actually helps us when we're carrying out well-designed independent CME that is independent of drug company control, so that we can uphold the general standards of independent CME.
Thank you, Eugene. Daniela, back to you. If we think about the definitions around support, what is the impact on pharma specifically? Especially, we were discussing around the use of emails, websites, social media. That's all now in this criteria as well, right?
Yes. So again, that was a good thing, specifically giving us guidelines across this topic on how a pharma company can also, let's say, communicate their support to the accredited activities by the UEMS. So we have some clarity, but challenges. So regarding the communication about the activity from external parties, the EACCME accepts that when a commercial company supports an e-learning material, for example, they can announce the activity through their website and also their social media, but not through emailing. So of course, being in the digital world, emailing is a very important piece of and very effective communication with HCPs. So I think, as I understand it, that the rationale behind this is to avoid maybe that, let's say, a form of spamming, but it's worth considering. I think that email communication, again, can be very effective and direct way to inform the potential learners about valuable CME activities. Email newsletters, announcements can be tailored, also segmented to the preferences of the recipients, and providing, let's say, personalized information and updates on these accredited activities. So I believe that if managed responsibly, respecting always the recipients' preferences and regulations, of course, mailing can be a useful tool for disseminating valuable educational opportunity and therefore facilitating engagement. So it was quite a surprise.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you both. We'll now look at the Q&A section where, while the three of us were chatting, actually, some chats were going on there as well. So let's go through those. I think the first question is about logos, and we touched upon that already. The second question is, do we need to display CME accredited sessions separately in a program if a non-accredited session contains speaker with pharma funding? So can you mix in one program CME, so independent medical education, and pharma controlled? Would like
I think this is quite tough, Froukje, because I can see quite a few of these questions really should be addressed to EACCME for them to actually clarify, because we are not the ultimate experts or the arbiters on this kind of thing. I think we can talk from our own experience, but people should address EACCME directly with these kind of questions.
According to that, if you allow me, Froukje, I will say that, for example, again, a barrier between industry controlled and independent medical education is always good. But what happens when you have material that is accredited by EACCME, for example, but other type of material in your platform, it's my case, that is not accredited, but it was for duration purpose. So now maybe with this half credit, we can do otherwise. But sometimes you have also something that is good, and for a reason like duration, it doesn't fit the accreditation criteria, still not controlled by the industry. But I think I personally don't see an issue as an independent medical education provider to provide both formats. Of course, it's not industry controlled.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And then looking at the questions, a lot of them are indeed for, good to ask EACCME these questions when you go through an application. What we will do is, also, of course, keep track of these questions and also see if we can find a good way of doing a follow-up webinar on this topic. Because I'm also looking at the time, and we have a few minutes left. I think there's one question that we can be very clear on, is that when we announce in an email, Daniela, this is for you, that new e-learning material, for example, is available. Can we or can we not say supported by, supported with a grant by Pharma X?
I mean, if we are, if we are the provider, meaning as us, then you have to display the financing of this activity. So of course you have to say the support received, by which company. But I think that in the criteria, it was when the supporter is communicating, it cannot be by emailing. Of course, as provider, we have to specify this, but again, it's not really well specified in the criteria. We see this kind of, if you're a pharma company, you cannot send an emailing saying that you're supporting it, but what's in this case, or we have to display and send an emailing to our database. That's not specified. This is why we need clarification, or as Eugene was saying, clear black and white guidelines, general principle that we can apply. And if we are specific, then some doubts, because we have thousands of cases.
Yeah, but as an education provider, when we announce new material available, we have to say who it is supported by from a transparent.
I don't recall it's clearly put in the guideline. This is what I do.
Those are the good CME practice principles, right? That we do that for transparency. Yeah. So with that, we only have 1 minute left. So I would like to thank you both, Eugene and Daniela. Very valuable insights. And thank you all for attending and submitting so many questions. Please don't log off yet, because we have some important information to share. It is clear that more clarity is needed on this topic. We hope to have criteria that are not only reasonable, but also enforceable. And we will be discussing this topic and many others at the 16th annual meeting of the European CME Forum in November in the Netherlands. Thank you again, and see you next. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.